Hey, what's up, cats and kittens? And shout out to all my cerebralites. It is she, the Cerebral Diva, and she is back and officially in the building with a brand new episode of reality, and that is TEA because I give it to you scalding hot. So grab your cups, grab your saucers, gather around, and let's all partake in this libation of Real Housewives of Atlantic Tea. Season 12, Episode 11. Now, first of all, I know I have been MIA over the last 2 episodes. So we're on 11, so that would be episodes 9 and 10. And let me tell you why I've been MIA. I was MIA because there was nothing to talk about. Nothing. I feel like episodes 9 and 10 were all nitty with no gritty. And so I didn't really feel compelled to come here and have a conversation about nothing. But anyway, so Bravo has been building up to this huge altercation between all of the women in Toronto. And last night, it finally happened. So let's talk about exactly what happened on last night's episode. So the episode begins with Dennis surprising Portia in Toronto. He and her, Tammy's fiance, Paul. You know, it's so interesting because this entire time I was of the impression that Tanya and Paul were married. I didn't even realize that they were engaged until just recently. So, Paul and Dennis both show up in Toronto. Dennis meets Portia on the rooftop where all of the ladies are hanging out. He comes up, he gets on both knees, not one knee, both knees, and he proposes or reproposes to Portia. I thought it was a really sweet moment. I was really, this is one of those moments where I'm sort of torn, right? Because the hopeless romantic in me always roots for love. Like, I want to see people be happy. I want to see people find their soulmate and live happily ever after. I think that most women do want to see that. But at the same time, there's also a cynic in me, and she is real. And the cynic in me is like, once a dog, always a dog, right? He sells hot dogs. So clearly he's in the business of dogs. So I'm sort of like, I don't know, like I just don't think he'll ever really change his spots. Now, here's my thing. If you go back into a relationship with Dennis, not my business, you're a grown woman, I can't tell you what to do. I just know that if the behavior repeats itself, I'm not trying to hear the, oh, I'm surprised, oh, I'm shocked, oh, I can't believe, how dare he, how could he? Because right now you know exactly who he is. And you're choosing to move forward with him in spite of, with the hope that he'll change. But I don't necessarily have any statistics, but I just think the probability of him reoffending is very high. So this is what I say, right? Instead of going back into a relationship with the same exact expectations, let's talk about the reason why you cheated, right? And while talking about the reason why you cheated, let's talk about behaviors moving forward. Because the bottom line for a lot of men and a lot of women, and I don't think people are honest about these conversations. I'm telling you, I do not think people are honest about these conversations. I wholeheartedly believe that for a lot of people, variety is the spice of life. Some people can be in a relationship where they are enamored with their partner. They love their partner. They are very happy with the partnership overall, but they still crave intimacy, physical intimacy outside of the relationship. But because we've all been groomed in this culture of monogamy, we believe that that's wrong. And so people don't really have those conversations. And so what people do is they wind up getting into relationships and feeling unfulfilled sexually. And for some people, monogamy works for them great. But that's not true. I think that's not true of most people. I think most people are non-monogamous. Comment down below. I'm curious to know what you guys have to think, because I wholeheartedly believe that most people crave something outside of their relationship. But people are just too afraid to be honest. So I say all that to say this. If Portia gets back into a relationship, if they choose to work on rebuilding their family, kudos to them for doing that. But let's have some real conversations about what our relationship looks like moving forward. I know that you crave variety, and since you've already opened that door, let me let you know that I crave variety too. And this is how we're going to move And be damned what society thinks, be damned what the church says or what people think. Do what makes the two of you happy. Stop trying to live in this box that's been created by society in terms of what a relationship is supposed to look like, because the reality is most of us cannot live up to that standard of perfection. And let's just be real. Let's just talk about our true wants, our true desires, and stop trying to fit the status quo. If you want to be non-monogamous, but you still like the institution of marriage, those two things can coexist. Am I crazy? Those two things can coexist, but people are just too afraid to have those conversations about what they truly, truly want. And I think when cheating comes into play, and you're talking about getting together, that's exactly the time to pull off the band-aid and let's have a real conversation about what we want, because I know for sure what I don't want, and that's to look like a fool walking around with egg on my face because you're doing whatever you want to do behind my back instead of us having a conversation like two consenting adults and figuring out how we make this work. So anyway, so Dennis proposed, Portia accepted, the two of them are back together. Everyone's rooting for them on the rooftop. You hear Nene in the background. You know, it's interesting to watch how Nene is slowly trying to maneuver her way back into Portia's good graces. That power shift, that power dynamic change is really interesting to watch, because Nene is used to being the queen bee and wanting people to come to her and reach out to her and sort of kowtow or capitulate to her. But Portia is having none of that. Portia's like, I'm over it. Don't want to have anything to do with it. But you hear Nene in the background sort of rooting Dennis and Portia on, and just I don't necessarily want to call it disingenuous, because I don't know. I don't really know Nene, but it just seemed desperate. Maybe not disingenuous, but definitely desperate in my opinion. So Portia accepts. Dennis goes off to Detroit. He just stopped by for a pit stop to propose and give Portia her ring. And it was really exciting. So after that, the girls decided that they wanted to revisit this whole snake gate thing. So everyone decides that they're going to retire to Marlowe's suite. So everyone goes to Marlowe's suite and mayhem ensues. So Portia and Kenya are sort of the two ringleaders of this interrogation. So they finally have Giovanna cornered. They have everyone in the room. People are asking questions. And Kenya comes up with this plan that instead of asking Giovanna, we're going to talk to her like we already know. Like, this information has been disclosed. We know that you are, in fact, the snake. So Giovanna walks into the room, and Kenya and Portia waste no time interrogating her. And you can see Giovanna clam up, and she's getting really defensive. But here's what I don't like about Giovanna. Giovanna is just an outright liar. Like anyone on the show, be it Nene, be it Marlo, who's associated with Giovanna, should be watching the way she moves. Because if you think that type of behavior or that disloyalty is only reserved for people that she's not close to, you're a fool. You are a fool. So they're interrogating Giovanna. Giovanna is steady denying it. She's turned into Sammy Davis Jr. She's tap dancing all around the issue and refusing to just come clean and just say, yes, I did it. And then Cynthia and Marlo just start going at it. And Marlo starts, what does she call her? A bald-headed scallywag? She calls Cynthia a bald-headed scallywag. And Cynthia is cursing her out. And in the middle of Cynthia cursing her out, they show a confessional with Nene, and Nene is like, this is the 50 Cent that I've been talking about, the one that you guys don't know. And I'm thinking to myself, what are you talking about? This is a woman who is being verbally accosted, who is speaking up for herself. Like, where is the evil villain that you're wanting us to see? Because I don't see it. From my opinion, Cynthia was 100% in her right to stand up. Marlo was being completely disrespectful. She called her Bob Marley. Like, she was going in on Cynthia, and Cynthia was just like, look, no, not today. I'm not that girl. And at one point, you have about 3 different arguments going on in the room. And Cynthia just gets up and she leaves, which I thought was a real grown woman move. Cynthia's like, you know what, you guys can have this. I don't have any time. I'm engaged. I'm happy. Life is good. I'm not about to do this for TV. I have better things to do in my time. So she got up and she walked out the room. When she walks out the room, Nene chases behind her, and then Kenya gets up, and they're both, sort of in the hallway with Cynthia, and then, Cynthia's like, just tell me who said it. And Kenya, is also saying to Nene, Nene, you need to tell her. And I was expecting at that point Kenya and Nene would have an altercation, because Kenya is bold. Kenya is bold with a capital B. Because if I were in Kenya's position and I wasn't cool with Nene, I would have definitely been talking to Cynthia as my friend, like, girl, come on, let's just go. We don't have time for this. This is beneath us. Like, we have better things to do with our time. We're too grown for this. I would have definitely been having that conversation with Cynthia, but I would have pretended like I didn't even recognize Nene's presence. Like, I would not have been having a direct interaction with Nene, knowing that we weren't on speaking terms. But Kenya was like, no, girl, tell her who said it. So she's chiming in. Eventually, they coax Cynthia back into the room. She goes back into the room, and everybody's going to. Giovanna's on the verge of tears. Giovanna and Portia are going to. Giovanna was telling, what did she say to Portia? She said something. I want to say she said something about your man is a snake. Like, stop telling him to sleep with. Tell him to stop sleeping with animals. She made some reference to bestiality in Dennis, and that definitely set Portia off. Portia stood up. Portia got very Atlanta on her in that room, and I thought that it was about to go south, because I don't know if Giovanna and Portia got into a fight who would win, but my money is definitely on Portia. But you can tell that Giovanna really didn't want any parts of what Portia was offering her. So people are separating them. There's all these different conversations. Nene's pleading to Giovanna, like, look, girl, just go in there and own it. Giovanna's like, I don't want to. There's too many of them against me. No one's supporting me. And I'm sitting there thinking to myself, like, girl, you baked this cake. So why are you acting like the victim in this particular situation? So she's going back and forth, being afraid to speak up. But at that point, it was pretty much common knowledge that the snake was Giovanna. Even though she refused to confirm it, I think everyone knew. Candy, everyone was saying it, like, look, we already know who it is. It's Giovanna. So they go back into the room, and Cynthia and Nene are having a conversation, and then Kenya reaches over and she starts pointing in Nene's face, and Nene starts bucking, and security comes in, and Nene looks like a whole lot of woman to hold back. She looks like a whole lot of woman to hold back. And so Kenya, in my opinion, is not really a fighter. Kenya fights verbally. Like, she's not really a physical fighter, which I do appreciate. So Kenya and Nene get into it, but even though Kenya is not necessarily a physical fighter, she was not backing down to Nene in that room. So at some point, Kenya and Cynthia decide that they're going to leave. They walk out the room. They're down the hall waiting for the elevator. As they're waiting for the elevator, Nene breaks loose like a moose on the loose. And she charges down the hallway to Cynthia and Kenya, who are waiting on the elevator. That elevator could not come quick enough for Kenya, because as soon as it came off, as soon as the elevator came, Kenya hopped on and pressed whatever floor she was on, and she exited stage left. Meanwhile, Nene's still in the hallway cursing and, ranting and raving about, don't try me, you got the wrong BITCH, this, that, and the third. And so that's pretty much how it left off. And then the following day, after everything happened, everyone's calling Tanya and telling Tanya, their versions of last night's events. And Nene shows up at Tanya's room, and she's getting ready for carnival. And both Nene and Giovanna decided that their time in Toronto had come to an end. So they leave. All the ladies get dressed up in their carnival ensembles. Everyone looked really good, in my opinion. And they decide to go to the parade. They hang out, things go great. After the parade, the following morning, or was it the same day? I think it was the following morning, everyone comes down for lunch or breakfast. So they're all having breakfast at the table, and at the table, Marlo apologizes to Cynthia, and Cynthia was definitely not necessarily in the headspace where she was ready to accept the apology, but she still did. And I thought that was a really good moment to see that reconciliation Marlo took the Jamie Foxx approach towards the altercation from the previous night and basically said, girl, blame it on alcohol. I was drunk. I can't remember what I was saying. I apologize. I love you. I respect you. I look up to you. This, that, and the third. Just, hitting all the typical sort of ego buttons. And so Cynthia was just like, all right, cool. I appreciate that, and she's just like, even though I'm not necessarily buying into what she has to say, I'll accept her apology. We're good. And so they move on. So then Marlo turns and looks at Kenya and she's like, Kenya, well, all the hair, why are you wearing a wig? Kenya, who is quick to call people out on every single thing, was not here for Marlo calling her out for wearing a wig. And as soon as Kenya sat down at the table, I was looking at her like, Kenya's wearing a wig. And then I'm having this battle with myself because I'm like, well, Kenya doesn't really wear a wig. So maybe the hairline is just looking wiggy for some reason. I just could not figure it out. But when Marlo called her out, Kenya would not deny it. She just really kept trying to deflect. Girl, please. Girl. No, you just walked into this woman's event, her wig event, through a whole, with a whole drum line. Caused this huge scene about natural hair and grow your own edges. And then here you are sitting in a wig and then getting mad because she's calling you out about wearing a wig. Now let me say this, right? In the world of Team Kenya versus Team Marlo, Team Nene versus Team Kenya, I am Team Kenya, right? I stand for Kenya for whatever reason. Judge me if you must. However, I don't stand for anyone to the point that I lose objectivity. And if Kenya is wrong about something, Kenya is definitely wrong about something. Doesn't mean that I can't still like her and support her. But I think a lot of people in this day and age, to like and support someone means that you have unabiding allegiance to someone where you can't necessarily call out their shortcomings or misgivings or misdeeds if you happen to see those occur. And I'm too grown for that. Like, if you messed up, you just messed up. Let's have a conversation. Let's move forward. So I just thought it was really interesting that Kenya, who is so quick to put someone on blast, did not like having a blast put on her. She just was not here and it was a minor blast. She just said you were wearing a wig. Like, girl, you could have just simply said, look, I did not have time today. They called me down. The call time was at this time. My hair was still wet, so I just had to do something really quick so I can come down here and have lunch with you bald-headed girls. So she could have just said something really quick, witty, and snappy and just moved on from it. But instead, she just looked completely uncomfortable and awkward in that moment. So anyways, the conversation goes on. Everyone's talking. And then out of nowhere, here comes Kenya again. Kenya's like, let me play devil's advocate for a moment. And they were like, uh-oh, here comes the messiness. And sure enough, they were right. And so Kenya starts saying, if you were in a situation where you knew that someone else's husband was cheating and you were privy to that information, would you disclose that information to the wife of or the partner of? Or would you want to know? And for the most part, everyone knew that Kenya was definitely alluding to someone at that table, right? It was pretty obvious that she was throwing shots. And the cameraman kept honing in on Tanya. I don't know if that was in post-edit or what happened, but they definitely kept putting the camera on Tanya in that moment. So even if you didn't know what was going on, they were definitely letting you know in this moment that Kenya was inferring that Tanya was the woman that she was talking about. So Tanya is sitting there essentially saying that she would like to know, but Kenya never spoke up and said who she was directly talking about. But I was just sitting there thinking to myself, Kenya, why would you do that? Like, what was the purpose? What was the intent? What are you gaining by doing that? And in that moment, I really came to the conclusion that this was the manifestation of Misery Loves Company. Misery Loves Company. At one time, last night, in one of her confessionals, Kenya was speaking about Portia and Dennis's relationship, and I think that she said something along, and I'm paraphrasing here, that, look, my relationship is shambles. I don't have the right to talk about anyone else's relationship, so as long as Portia's happy, I'm happy for her. I believe she said something along those lines. And I was like, you know, shout out for a grown woman moment. I was here for that. And then she turns around and does this to Tanya at this breakfast. And I thought, you know, like, this is, you know, the epitome of misery loves company. Like, Kenya is so unhappy in her own marriage, in her own relationship, that she feels compelled to throw darts at this woman's relationship. Now, you remember earlier when I was talking about people having open relationships and conversations about the inner workings of their own relationship and having adult conversations about what those expectations look like. Who's to say that Tanya and Paul haven't had a conversation where Tanya's like, look, you can give her everything but the money. You know what I mean? You can do whatever you want, have whoever you want, but just understand that you and I are business and life partners. I don't really care about that. You know, we don't know what type of conversation, what type of situation that they've worked out. But in that moment, I don't know. It made me not like Kenya in that moment, because I just felt like, you know, and this is the question I asked myself too, right? Is this Kenya, or is this Kenya on TV? Like, would Kenya do something like this in real life? Because in real life, I don't think people really behave this way. So I asked myself, like, is this something the producers are putting her up to? Is she really being this malicious? I don't know. But I just didn't like the way that, because kicking Tanya, or hurting Tanya, is like kicking a kitten to me. Tanya seems so sweet, so dear, so genuine, so kind. Like, pick another victim. Like, and also, it was completely unprovoked. Like, Tanya hadn't done anything to you outside of inviting you on a trip to her hometown. So what would be the incentive for you to want to hurt this woman? She's done nothing to you. So anyway, she never said what was going on, but in next week's clips, it looks like Tanya put on her boxing gloves and she's learning to fight back. Apparently, Kenya asked her to bring something back for her, and she's going to disclose exactly what that is. I don't know if it's going to be like extension clips or what, maybe in sex toys. I have no clue, but she's going to share what Kenya asked her to bring back next week, so that should be interesting. Anyway, you guys, we're about 23 minutes into this video. I need to get ready for work. You should be getting ready for work too, so I'm going to call it the end for right now. Hopefully next week will be interesting too. Let me tell you straight out, full disclosure, if it's boring, I'm not going to talk about it. I'm just not going to talk about it. I don't have time to waste. I don't want to waste your time, so I'm going to wait and talk about the episodes when they're interesting. This is an interesting episode, and I do want to say this, like, I do feel like Bravo built us up to let us down. Like, it was good, but not as good as I wanted it to be, you know. Just a lot of screaming and yelling, and, you know, nothing major really happened. So yeah, as always in closing, remember to live better, love harder, and think smarter. Like, comment, subscribe, and share if you so care. It is me, the Cerebral Diva, and I will talk to you guys again soon. Have a fantastic day. Bye-bye.